Hello everyone, today we're going to be looking at the various sensors and triggers we offer. I'll talk about each one and why you might pick it. We'll even go through some scenarios and narrow down to a single sensor. This is an unscripted video, so bear with me. Let's start with the first one, the foot pedal. If you need an actor to trigger a scare, this is going to be your best bet. You can open up this case, remove these feet, and mount this to a wall. And they can really smash this with their hand without damaging it. You could also just leave it on the ground for them to hit with their feet. So if it's an actor triggered scare, you're going to want to go with the foot pedal. So that leaves us with these four sensors. Over here is our outdoor motion sensor. This detects body heat, and it has sealed gaskets and comes with plugs for the screws to make this weatherproof. The indoor motion sensor, same thing, detects body heat but is not suitable for outdoor use. The diffused beam sensor. This emits an invisible beam, and when someone walks in front of it, they reflect that beam back into it, causing it to trigger. This is perfect for outdoor use since it is IP64 rated. The reflective beam sensor emits an invisible beam, bounces off the reflector, and gets received by it again. When someone walks between the sensor and the reflector, it breaks that beam and goes off. This is also an IP64 rated sensor, so it can be used outdoors. So let's start with the obvious scenario, is you're outdoors. Which sensor do you pick? Don't pick the indoor motion sensor. You will just have problems. So that leaves you our three outdoor rated motion sensors. But if you're in an exceptionally wet environment, we'd suggest the beam sensors. These are just sealed better than the outdoor motion sensor. The outdoor motion sensor isn't sealed perfectly around the cable, so it can be exposed to humidity on the inside of this, which can potentially damage it. But for most outdoor cases during the month of October, light rain, this is fine. If you're leaving them up all year round, you might want to consider a beam sensor. So the next question we get asked a bunch is about heavy fog. If you're in a heavy fog environment, do not pick a beam sensor. For the diffused beam sensor, fog can reflect the beam back into it, triggering it. The diffused beam sensor, fog could interrupt the beam being reflected back into it, therefore both can be falsely triggered in heavy fog. Both of the motion sensors see infrared heat, so body heat will be seen through heavy fog. So both of these are perfect for heavy fog environments. So why would you pick a diffused beam sensor or a reflective beam sensor over a motion sensor? Well, the beam sensors are a lot more precise. These only emit a light out and receives it, where the motion sensors, they see in a very wide field of view, so they can see almost the entire room. So if you have a scare or a spot in your haunt that you do not want maintenance staff or actors to trigger, you might want to consider a beam sensor. You can mount these at a level where maintenance staff can duck under or step over them and not trigger them. So let's talk about the two beam sensors and why you would choose one over the other. So we know both of these are suitable for outdoor use. They're both IP64 rated, and they're both effective in heavy fog environments. So why would you choose one over the other? Well, let's start with the reflective. The main drawback of the reflective beam sensor is the reflector. The reflector needs to be mounted directly across from the sensor up to 14 feet away. So if these two were to get misaligned, the sensor will continuously go off since it thinks something is blocking that beam from being reflected back into it. Perfect for hallways or things like that. The diffused beam sensor doesn't need a reflector. Instead, it has an adjustable distance with this big knob here. The minimum distance is about 9 inches. The maximum distance is 8 feet, so it can't go as far as the reflective, but that lets it be used in some interesting cases. For one, for example, in a yard haunt, you could set this up to where it can only detect on your sidewalk. So since you can do up to 8 feet away, so for example, if you set it at 4 feet, if you walk 2 feet in front of it, it'll go off. If you walk 3 feet in front of it, it'll go off. If you walk 5 feet in front of it, it won't go off. That's the diffused beam sensor. So thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video comparing the different sensors and triggers we have. If you have any questions about any of them, feel free to ask. We're happy to help.